So, I've been using the A52 for about 6 months now. Here are my thoughts. Firstly, it is the 4G version, and which version you get mainly depends on your region, but then again there are too many differences between the 4G and the 5G version. The 5G does have a Snapdragon 765G, a 120Hz screen instead of a 90Hz screen, and of course 5G. Now, the price of the phone is $350. That means it's fairly comparable to the likes of the iPhone SE, the OnePlus Nord 2, and the Poco F3, etc. But then again, it does depend on what region you're in. Alright, let's get to the phone now, starting off with the main attraction, the display. It is a 6.5-inch 1080p AMOLED display with a refresh rate of 90 Hz and a peak brightness of around 800 nits. Now, for the price, it is an amazing screen. It's sharp, it's fluid, and it gets plenty bright and is a treat for content consumption. Also, I keep it on the vivid mode personally, but if you want, you can switch back to the natural mode for more flat colors. Now, when it comes to the build quality, it's all plastic. Even that aluminium looking shiny chrome-ish side, that is also plastic. But I do use a case on my phone, and the benefit of the plastic is that, well, it won't break that easily. Also, if you do go caseless, you can be rest assured that it is a matte back. That means you won't get many fingerprints on it. Another benefit about the build quality is that it has an IP67 dust and water resistance rating, which means you can submerge it underwater for about 1 meter for roughly 30 minutes. Now, this is something you don't get in other competitors. There is also an under-display fingerprint sensor, and well, it's fine. It takes about a second to unlock, so it's not the fastest, but it is mostly accurate and does get the job done. Nothing special here. There is also Face ID on the phone, but I have noticed that it's not nearly as fast as compared to some Xiaomi phones and OnePlus phones. Then again, it's there if you want the option. Now, when it comes to software, it's running Samsung's One UI 3.1, and powering it is a Snapdragon 720G. Personally, I really like Samsung's One UI. It's clean and minimal, and if you're a tech nerd, there's a lot of customization that you can do. And if you want to go even further, you can use Good Lock from the Galaxy Store. This phone has a Snapdragon 720G. Now, it's no Snapdragon 800 series like in some other phones in this price range, like the Poco F3. But then again, for my personal usage, which is like YouTube, WhatsApp, etc., it's more than good enough. Even for gaming, the Snapdragon 720G performs surprisingly well, with most games running good enough for most people if you're not a competitive gamer. And also, the benefit of the Snapdragon 700 series is that it consumes less power, so that means more battery life. Who doesn't like more battery life? Now, the model I have comes with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. But that's not the only version. You can get a 4GB version and a 6GB version. But then again, I probably would go with the 6GB version. Also, you can get 256GB of storage with the 6 and the 8GB version. If you don't want to upgrade to the 256GB version, there is also an SD card, so you can put in any SD card that goes up to 1 TB in there. Be rest assured that all of your photos and memories are stored on your phone. Now, moving on to the cameras. This phone has 4 cameras, but like everyone else says, there's not much point of a macro and a depth sensor. But then again, if you want to take close-up photos, you can with okay quality. And I did notice that if you cover the depth sensor while taking a portrait, it won't let you take it and tell you to stop covering the camera. Now onto the 2 remaining cameras, the main 64-megapixel optically stabilized lens and the 12-megapixel ultra-wide with a 123 degrees field of view. Now, considering the price, they are really nice cameras. Nothing incredible, but when you think about what a phone camera is for, taking memories, it captures the scene nicely with lively colors that will make you cherish the memory without it looking bad. Now, that is in good lighting. When it begins to get dark or you're in a poorly lit room, the OIS really does help bring out the detail in the shots. And the night mode is pretty good for what it does. And while it's not perfect, it is certainly nice to know that even if it's dark, you can still get a good shot. Also, I've shot many videos from this camera, and well, it's pretty good with one major asterisk. The video in 4K mode lacks a lot of stabilization and looks pretty janky, and since it takes up a lot more space, I stick to 1080p. Better stabilization, less storage. However, the video in low light, it's not great, it's definitely passable, but nothing special. The ultra-wide is normally the lens that, well, doesn't get that much attention. And while that is true, this ultra-wide is definitely passable in good light, with the same lively colors and a wild field of view to make sure that whatever you want it to capture is indeed in frame. But when it begins to get dark, or you're in a poorly lit room, you shouldn't use the ultra-wide. It's not that good. When it comes to the video from the ultra-wide, well, it's not great in 4K due to the lack of stabilization, but in 1080p, it's not bad. Also, there's a super steady video mode, which defaults to 1080 30 FPS, and well, it is very stable. However, the quality does take a small hit. The selfie camera is 32 megapixels in the middle of the screen, and it's good enough with decent low light performance, but it can also record in 4K 30 if you're into that. This phone does have stereo speakers, so if you're watching YouTube or any other content consumption, you should know that it's loud enough to get the job done, even with a fan on in the background. Also, this phone does indeed have a headphone jack. Nice. When it comes to the battery, this phone has a 4500 mAh battery with up to 25 watts of fast charging. But you only get a 15-watt fast charger in the box, which does juice up the phone from around 0 to 100 in roughly 1 hour 45 minutes. When it comes to battery life, I roughly get about 6 hours of screen on time per day, which is good enough to get me through the full day. But if you put it under like extremely heavy load for the whole day, it can be killed in a day. It's definitely good enough battery life, like it's pretty good, but it's nowhere near the claims that Samsung made of 2-day battery life. This phone does have a lot of competition, but I feel like it mainly depends on your region. With which region are you in? If you're living in the United States, you have the Pixel and the iPhone to choose from. However, if you're living in Asia, for example, you don't have that many options. You can get Redmi phones and a lot of Xiaomi phones for quite cheaper and like with pretty similar specs. So then I guess it does depend on your region. But if you want Samsung's One UI with the 3 years of Android updates and 4 years of security updates, not many phones match what this phone can do.